The Sniper Gang War. How Kodak Black's homies turned on each other. They called themselves Sniper Gang. A crew forged in the trenches of Pompano Beach, Florida, one of the most overlooked yet dangerous zip codes in the Sunshine State. They weren't just a rap collective. They were brothers. Or at least that's what they told the world. What nobody saw coming was the day those same brothers would point their barrels at each other. This is the story of how loyalty crumbled, how money twisted friendships into rivalries, and how one of rap's most chaotic inner circles turned into its own worst enemy. To understand the war, you have to understand where it started. Pompano Beach isn't Miami. It doesn't have the glamour, the clubs, the tourist dollars. What it has is poverty, survival instinct, and a code of the streets that runs deeper than any record deal. Kodak Black, born Dusan Octave, later legally changed to Bill Kahan Capri, grew up in the Golden Acres housing project. This wasn't a place that raised artists. It raised survivors. From a young age, Kodak was in and out of juvenile detention. Before he could legally drive a car, he had already accumulated a rap sheet that would make most adults nervous. But music was his outlet. He started rapping early, building a local buzz that spread through Broward County like wildfire. And around him a circle formed. People who had known him since before the fame. People who hustled with him, survived with him, and now wanted to eat with him. Sniper Gang became the official umbrella. A label, a brand, a brotherhood. Artists like Jackboy, Snapdog, and others came under the wing. The idea was simple. Kodak blows up, he brings his people with him. A rising tide lifts all boats. That was the vision. But the streets have a saying, everybody wants to eat, but not everybody wants to share the plate. If there was one person who stood closest to Kodak Black in the Sniper Gang ecosystem, it was Jackboy. Born Romulo Montes Hill, Jackboy wasn't just a rapper signed to the label. He was a genuine street figure. His music carried the authenticity of someone who had actually lived through the things he rapped about. Federal charges, shootings, the whole nine. When Kodak was locked up, and Kodak was locked up frequently, it was Jackboy who held down the brand. That's where things get complicated. Because when you hold something down for someone, you start to feel like it belongs to you. Or, at the very least, that your contribution deserves recognition beyond what you're getting. Jackboy was grinding, releasing music, building his own fan base, and the receipts weren't matching the respect he felt he was owed. In 2021, things boiled over publicly. Social media became the battlefield. Shots were fired, not literal ones yet, but words, which in rap culture can be just as damaging. Jackboy made it clear he was moving independently. He no longer wanted to operate under the Sniper Gang banner. The split was messy. It wasn't a clean handshake and a goodbye. It was public, it was personal, and it left a wound. Kodak, for his part, responded the way Kodak always responds. Chaotically, emotionally, and without a filter. Posts went up. Comments were made. The internet watched two men who had been through genuine hardship together reduce years of loyalty to a Twitter argument. But this was just the beginning. Here's what nobody outside the circle talks about enough. The financial structure of independent rap labels, especially ones built by street guys without formal business training, is almost always a disaster waiting. Corporate entity. Deals were made on handshakes and mutual understanding. Revenue streams weren't always clearly documented. When Kodak was incarcerated, the question of who controlled what became murky. And in the absence of clear answers, assumptions were made, and assumptions breed resentment. Multiple people in the Sniper Gang orbit have spoken, directly or indirectly, about feeling shortchanged. About putting in work, promoting shows, recording music, building the brand, and not seeing the financial return they expected. This isn't unique to Sniper Gang. It's the classic story of independent label drama. But what makes Sniper Gang different is the environment these men came from. When you grow up broke, money isn't just money. It's survival. It's respect. It's proof that you made it out. So when someone feels like they're not getting their fair share, it doesn't just feel like a business dispute. It feels like a betrayal of everything you fought for together. It feels personal. And in Pompano Beach, personal disputes don't stay in the boardroom. To fully grasp how Sniper Gang fractured, you have to map out Kodak's legal timeline, because every time he went away, the dynamics on the outside shifted. 2019 was a pivotal year. Kodak was arrested on federal weapons charges. Then came the bombshell: sexual assault charges from a 2016 incident in South Carolina. His legal situation was dire. He faced potentially decades behind bars. And while his legal team fought, the empire he had built was left without its central figure. Artists and associates had to make choices. Do you wait for someone who might not come home for years? Do you continue to operate under their banner when they're not present to guide it? Or do you start building something for yourself? Different people in the Sniper Gang circle made different choices. Some stayed loyal. Others began quietly distancing themselves. And some, whether out of ambition, frustration, or simple survival instinct, started operating as if the old structure no longer applied. When President Trump commuted Kodak's sentence in January 2021, one of the most controversial pardons in recent memory, Kodak came home to an ecosystem that had shifted without him. The loyalty had been tested. Some passed. Many failed. And Kodak, never the most emotionally regulated person to begin with, came back with energy that was difficult to manage. He was grateful. He was hungry. He was also suspicious. And that suspicion poisoned the well. In the modern era, rap beefs don't just happen in songs. They happen in real time on Instagram Live, in tweets, in comment sections. And the Sniper Gang internal war played out in full public view. Jackboy's departure was followed by a period of pointed subliminals. Songs that seemed to reference betrayal, disloyalty, snakes in the circle. Neither party would always name names directly, but the streets knew. The fans knew. Everyone knew who was talking about who. What made this particularly painful to watch was how genuine the brotherhood had once appeared. Old footage and interviews showed Kodak speaking about his crew with real emotion. These weren't just business partners. These were people he had grown up with, people who had been there in the worst moments of his life. And now they were airing each other out on social media. There were also third parties who complicated things further. Associates, managers. I was loyal when it counted. I held it down when you couldn't.
In eers adingviel, keeping te conflict alle vir beklouse tyr of an interests weer is vet by te chas. Tes is die ifusystem ta destroy skreefs. Not just disagreements, but te people around toese disagreements wo beneath het from tem never being resolve het. In Mars 2022, the situation took a turn that no amount of social media postering geld contain. As soorting involving individuals kon het toe te snipergang kirsle brauge te real world consequences of thuis internal waarin toe sarp voetjes. Details remain merkei, as te always to wen street violence intershades with the public figure is wo have legal reasons to stay quiet. Bitte message was clear, tes had gewone by ontrap beef. Tes was no longer about streams, royalties and Instagram captions. Real danger was in te air. Kodak himself has been no stranger to violence. Has been sought at. Has been present at violent incidents. His whole life has been marked by the proximity of theater, which is part of what makes his massive resonate, but also part of what makes his personal story so tragic. Here was a man talented en nou getoe escape te chykle, wo kept getinkpel het bak in. And nov te people closes to hem weer a part of dat kykle. De snipergang brand, onze synonymous with the loyalty and provert authenticity, was bekoming synonymous with the internal chaos. And in the rap industry, chaos has consequences. Labels get nervous. Deals fall apart. Collaborators keep their distance. Het wil betoe ja sy antwoord dishonest toe vrame te story as simply Kodak skreef turning on him. The reality is more nuanced. Jackboy has consistently maintained that his independence was not a betrayal but authenticity. In interviews, he has expressed in his own accomplishments, his misses, his fanbase, his ability to operate without anonymous toesiggen. Hy built so met